Oh, that's great. Okay.
Oh,
She wouldn't have the budget, yeah.
let me do that. real quick.
Max dropped off entirely, so I imagine he's rebooting.
Testing the microphone now.
We can hear you now.
All right, good.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah, it was just jumping in and out of the program.
And
We're ready.
we'll see if, well, Dana's not on yet, so.
I don't know how late she'll be.
Oh, you did say she might be late. Tracy and Max, can you see the budget? Tracy can, Max cannot.
Yeah, I got it.
Thank you.
Max, it should be in your email. I just sent it with Tracy's.
Oh, he's got it. Okay, got a thumbs up. All right. Well, it's 6:04. I'll call the city work session of November 30th, 2021 to order. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Livingston,
Here.
Councilmember Gill,
Present.
Mayor Lobby,
Here.
Councilmember Gowing,
Here.
Councilmember Pergency,
Present.
Councilmember Tharp,
Here.
and Mayor Pro Tem Green is not with us at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Ask for approval of the agenda. Anybody have anything on the agenda that they want to change?
Bill moves to approve the agenda.
Going seconds.
Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Housekeeping matters. Anything anybody wants to talk about before we dive into the rest of the budget? Steve, not yet. I have a couple quick things. I went over the housing IGA with Christiana today. I asked her for a couple changes. She felt like that she was going to bring those to Chris, and I felt like they were minor. She felt like they were minor. So we should have that IGA on city council agenda on December the 7th for approval. Chris says yes. She didn't shoot me down in flames.
Not expected to,
the Board of County Commissioners may have it on its agenda for approval the day before, since that's their
Right.
meeting on the 6th.
Okay, thank you.
So,
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Is that regarding how the city and the county will work together with the 2A funds and the housing director?
Indirectly, yes. It's basically a services contract for what the county will provide the city for the money the city will give the county to help pay for that IGA, that housing director.
Okay,
So Chris and Christiane tried to keep it more simple than an overreaching IGA on the scope of what we want to accomplish. Rather, it is just a contract for the services of that person between the city and county.
okay,
Okay.
great.
I'm a little frustrated with ARPA funding, and I want to just bring this up. I've been trying for, I'm going to say it, about 4 months now, to get the county to sit down and go over the ARPA funding request, and to this date, that still hasn't happened. What I would like to do, and so I'd like a little help in evaluating these ARPA requests. I don't think we need a full, city council work session or anything like that, but if anybody would like to help me go through them and decide on whether or not, as a city, we want to use our ARPA funds to help fund these organizations, I would appreciate that help. And I'd like to do that probably, it could be next week, but I'd like to do it.
And those are the proposals that we saw a few meetings
Mhm,
ago,
yeah.
is that correct?
Yeah, and I just say, I've looked at all of them, and only one of them I thought probably didn't, feel right to me. And actually, in talking to Commissioner Marcellus, she kind of agreed with that. So I feel like I've let some of these organizations down because I've wanted that to be a collaborative process, but it's not. And we still have the money, and we've had the money for 7 months, and we're not helping people who need it, who qualify under ARPA for funding. So is anybody willing to schedule with me a time to sit down and review these?
I'll do it, but just don't do it on Thursday.
Okay. I'll reach out to you, Tracy, and then we'll go through. And I think they're easy decisions. I can tell you what I have in mind is to use the cities. The split was 32.3% from the city in terms of the city and county collaborative money. And if we find those requests to be good requests, we give them 32.3% of the total ask. And most of them are asking a total from the city and county, was the way they approached it, except there was one that did separate for the city and county. So I would like to, so just so you know, Tracy, that's what's kind of what's on my mind.
And did you get my email with my thoughts on those different proposals?
I don't think I did.
Okay, I'll double check that I went through.
Yeah, well,
Or maybe resend.
it's very possible that it did go through. If you
Okay.
resend it, I would really appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Next up, we will entertain public comments on items that are not on this agenda tonight. Anybody in the public would like to speak, please come up, introduce yourself, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Wait till the clock gets on a quarter. Okay, my name is Steve Prestash. I live at 131 East 3rd Street. Again, my reason for coming to this meeting is I'm afraid of losing my house. I'm starting to enjoy a little better sleep, although I seem to still have dreams that these issues percolate through, but not quite. I just seem to be getting a little better sleep now. It seems to me that when I first moved to town, the government here was community government. Now it's transitioned to a plutocratic kind of government. I'm not sure if that's the right way to say it. Instead of a democratic government. We're more interested in city council in enforcing privileges than we are enforcing the letter of the law. A good example of that would be the sign code variance for realtors. They don't have to pay anything for their signs. Everybody else has to pay some money for their signs, but the realtors are exempt from that. So we're somewhat behind what's happening globally as far as transitioning to more democratic kind of functioning. We're functioning in an imperial manner where money is and property are the determining factors and not the law. So I'll continue to check these issues out, and I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you kindly.
Thank you, Mr. President. Anybody else who would like to speak to City Council? Okay, thank you very much. Next up, we have some discussions. I'll try and keep it brief so we can get out of here by 7:30 for Max. PTO payout. I've looked at this. You know, this is what the fire union had brought to me as a possibility. As I've looked at it, and Donna and I have evaluated this, it's not even worth doing. We have 3 people who are over their limit, and only 3. And then I'm going to go to those managers, 2 of those people, kind of our managers, and ask them to put in place a plan for those people to use their PTO. For everybody else, it is their manager's responsibility to make sure that their employees don't cap out on PTO. Now, that's not always easy, I get it, but it is part of the job. So I think it is a non-action item having evaluated, just so you guys know. So I will go back to the fire union, and that will be one of their asks that we will respectfully, not go any further with. Colorado Gives Day donation. Do you still think that is something that we would want to do? What would
that look like?
What we talked about, well, I was talking about, I think there are about 23 different organizations under the wing of the Lake County Community Fund who will be on the website for Colorado Gives Day and will be open to giving. And I thought, what if we just gave 100 each of them from the city, just as a good faith effort towards their fundraising.
How about 200 each?
I have no problem with that at all, Tracy. That would be a little more meaningful.
I'm okay with those levels of giving without too much consideration, and as long as it's equitable to all the organizations, that seems like the right approach.
Okay. Any other thoughts or suggestions? This is not for you, Steve.
Well said, Cisco. I think he makes a good point.
Okay. Okay. I would entertain a motion, please.
Gowing moves to approve $200 per each community fund organization for Colorado Gives Day.
5 seconds.
Is there any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. All are in favor. Okay. This is a budget work session, and so we start off with the animal shelter. You have in front of you the major budget, and then you also have, for each of the considerations tonight, you have the worksheet for payroll. Caitlin, go ahead.
Hey, everybody. So my main reason for being here tonight is to advocate for our staff and our staff need. So I saw our new budget now reflects 64 hours. It was previously 56. We're hoping for 80.
It was previously 52, sorry.
Correct. And then we met on November 4th and you agreed to 56.
64.
So with the 64 to 80, that's only 2 more work days, so 16 hours total. And with that math, that's gonna be around $12,480 a year.
Sorry, the increase from 64 to 80
Yep,
would be how much?
12,480.
Is that loaded cost or pure
What's that?
payroll cost?
Well, I didn't hear that.
Is that the loaded cost or payroll cost?
I don't do finances, so I'm not sure. That's just the basic math based off how I calculated it
Okay.
for that sheet.
Wages. Are we assuming wages?
So we're
then?
assuming-
Yeah.
Okay.
Does anybody have any questions for Caitlin?
Are you gonna talk more, Caitlin, or?
I can, or if anybody has questions, I can pull up my phone to go over the notes that was made to review that. Whatever's easiest for you all.
So, yeah, I read all your materials and thanks for breaking that down and. You know, one thing I will say about this is of all the things we've considered in these budget meetings, this was by far the most public input I've seen for something. And so I know that doesn't always totally represent interest, but there was a lot of public input supporting increasing the staffing at the animal shelter. A lot of letters.
And that was mostly word of mouth. The only Facebook post we did was if people could attend tonight. So that was just people telling people to write letters. So we appreciated it.
Any thoughts on this?
Caitlin, what would you say is our shelter's mission?
Currently, we have our mission to support the animals in our care, to get them into homes, and then sheltering as a whole is moving towards preventative measures, so supporting the community members. So, for example, earlier this year, we had a dog that regularly gets out and runs in the road. So we gave them a tie out, a dog house, and some fencing so that they could secure the dog. We're just working on solutions.
And when I went through the letter, I mean, there are a number of things that I guess I know, or you've listed that you want to do, or you would like to see done. And yet I also noticed where there were a couple of times where you said, well, we have to have these hours to have, the requirement, to meet the requirements. And so, and so I guess I'm not quite sure if you're prioritizing those things that are necessary for a community animal shelter. And we are not, the shelter is not a non-for-profit, not-for-profit. You're funded by the city.
Correct.
Whereas not-for-profits have to generate their own money.
Right.
And I'm not saying that you don't need the staff or anything else, but I also look at the scheduling, and it doesn't look like you have any management in the shelter or working on a Saturday or a Sunday.
That didn't happen in previous years. Brenda has a family with children in high school, so weekends are her only time. And that's the only time I have to do my dog training business, which generates the money for all my medical bills.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm just curious. So you have on-call and on-call. So, and the reason I'm asking, I have had people tell me that they can't get a hold of anybody on the weekend at the shelter. And I wasn't sure. I said, well, maybe somebody was out. They were
We have
sick.
a logbook of all the phone calls and the voicemail. So, I mean, that's the problem with small towns. If they would come to us and tell us that they can't get a hold of someone, then we could make solutions versus telling someone about it
Mhm.
who's not in charge.
So that's why I was curious as far as, no management role on Saturdays and Sundays. And so that was kind of a question. And I've been volunteering at the shelter for 25 years. That's when I first met you. You were volunteering as a high schooler. And, I thought it was interesting talking about cleaning kennels, and each surface needs 5 minutes. you get in there with the hot seat, you hit them all with Rescue Plus or whatever it is now, and you leave it at 5. You don't do one surface, go away, 5 minutes, then come and do the side, then you do the,
Well,
You
in
know.
winter, we have to. You can't have multiple dogs outside in the snow, so we have to do one kennel at a time in the winter.
and, right, and, but I'm saying for one kennel. I mean, it's got the bottom and the sides,
Right.
but I mean, you can do all of them, spray them down, 5 minutes, disinfected. Because you had a kind of a very interesting where 5 minutes and then we leave for the next one. And we, you know, so I wasn't quite sure what that looked like.
Well, while we're cleaning in the morning, if it's not cold, then multiple dogs can be outside, or the managers would be doing play groups so that multiple dogs are out of their kennels. Or on the weekends, they use the kennels that are in the outside yard. However, in the winter, we can't leave them outside in the snow. So someone has to be outside, or we have one dog in the large yard with a dog bed and a blanket to get off the snow, but we can't do that for multiple dogs.
And how many dogs you currently have, or what's your
We have
average
3.
number?
I'd say on average, it's about 3. We did the big transports at the end of the year because that was 15 puppies in need at a high kill shelter, and it brought in $1,500 for the animal shelter in addition to additional donations.
Okay.
So we are currently with our online system, we're able to run reports. So we're getting everything entered in from the beginning of the year. So at the end of the year, we'll have length of stay, how many dogs we had per week, how long the cats were there, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Then my next question is, what have we spent on vet bills?
I would have to check that here in the
Do you-
budget.
Donna,
but-
can you
You
provide?
can actually see it in.
Yeah,
in
it's
this
in the
report.
budget.
I mean, is
It's
it current to date?
It's current through October.
And
This one
Dr.
is
Lindemeyer
current
has
through October.
Okay,
But
worked with us.
So you can get a pretty good idea that they're way up.
Yeah.
We have a lot of, the animal shelter budget is horrible. I've never seen a budget disintegrate the way this one has. Now, I've tried to give Caitlin a lot of leeway during this time. She's new, but I mean, I'll just be blunt. She doesn't understand a budget.
I mean,
And
to be blunt, this was not discussed in my meeting with the
Yeah,
mayor,
actually it
and
was.
Dudley was illegally vaccinating the animals at the shelter. So
Okay.
that was a great way to keep that cost down.
Let me explain why I have a real problem. I sit down with each of my managers every year, and I put together a budget with them, which is what I did with Caitlin. She has now come to you with a proposal outside the budget. I've never seen a manager do that. I don't know what to say. We have a process by which we put a budget together. We've been putting this budget together for months. And now to have a departmental ask outside of that budget after the fact is, it would be a cautionary tale. Do you want the fire department to come to you on the last day of budget considerations with a whole proposal that's not in the budget? Would you want the street department or fire or police department to do the same thing? You don't want that. You want to stick with your process. Now, the other thing is, I think Caitlin wants to put everything she wants together now. All my managers would love that. But that's not how we operate. We talk about what's going to happen this year. Then what about the next few years? You know, how do we make progress inside of a budget, a very small city budget? We have one of the smallest city budgets in the entire state of Colorado. And that's okay, as long as we understand who we are and what we're doing and why we're doing it. And the budget is an expression of that. So the problem I have with this is that it is outside of the process and was what not was agreed to in the budget meeting we had.
I have a question about your process concerns.
Sure.
So we had presentations from all the departments, street department, police department,
Correct.
fire department, right? And those were already budgets that you had agreed upon?
They had all agreed to those budgets at that point, yes.
Okay, have we gotten the equivalent from the animal shelter yet?
You're looking at it.
Okay, and so the difference between those departments and this department is that the manager, in this case Caitlin, is asking the council for more than you and she had already talked about.
That is correct.
So if we were to follow that rule, then the council would not be able to weigh in on deviations that haven't been already vetted through you.
That's a
Which
good
to
point.
me feels a little bit, I agree, that's a great way to do it, but if we don't allow a manager to also come to the council, I feel like that would just put too much control in one person's court. So I'm okay with that being a thing
That's
people
actually,
do.
that's an excellent point. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a good point. But the problem is, let's just use the fire department as an example. If Dan wanted to disagree with me on the budget, he would do that to my face. He would disagree openly with me.
I
Because
did
he's-
disagree with you
because
during
he's-
our meeting.
And then we would talk about that. And then if he decided that the budget was not acceptable to him, he would let me know.
Max has a question.
Max has a quick one.
Hey, Max, good.
I have a couple questions. Number one, with the hours that you have placed on the schedule and a 12 to 1 o'clock close for lunch, do shelter employees get paid for their lunch break?
No,
So are the hours that, so for example, you're 9 to 5 Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, and then 9 to 3 Thursday. That is a total of 30 hours. You're actually working 26 hours a week if you're not getting paid.
Brenda and I typically don't end up taking lunch because we're catching up on things during our lunch hour. So sometimes we will, and we'll either stay later or come in earlier if we plan to have an hour off lunch, or that will reflect in our timesheet.
Yep, and I guess my thought, and I'm going on to what Jane was talking about earlier is I think she was trying to get at how much time do you really need for like to fully function in a shelter? And I don't want to put words in your mouth, Councilmember Gowing, but that's what I heard was how much time do you need? Does it require two techs to come in at 8 a.m. to do the cleaning the animal kennels, feeding and doing dishes and laundry? Does it require, I'll tell you what, I have close to 100 emails coming in a single day, and I have about an hour to get through them. 3 hours would be like going to the beach and taking a vacation for emails, phone calls, and sorting through applications for me. And I'm talking about applications with pipelines and electrical transmission lines, not adoption applications. So I think she's, and I have the same question is there a way to, I mean, if this is what you need, you're the one that is the shelter, you're responsible for the animal shelter, and I don't want to second guess you, but I think in the light of what Councilmember Gowan was talking about, at least what I heard was, do you need all this time? Like, or is there a way to reduce the budget by providing, more realistic timeframes? I don't know.
Yeah, so I would say we need the time during the week. It's Shyler as our only kennel tech, and she's nonstop all day. She doesn't get to interact with the public. So if we only have one kennel tech on the weekend, they're spending 7+ hours cleaning, doing laundry, doing dishes. And then when people are coming in, they're not able to fully either help the people or fully complete their tasks in the back with the animals. So by having 2 people, Jason can license dog, do impounds. That's why Brenda and I were formerly on call.
another question. Is this, so this is your proposed,
That's
this
proposed.
is what you would like. And this is at that 80 hours that you're asking for?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's
Um,
even cutting, Sequoia was being trained on Fridays and then on Mondays, either or. So that's reducing her to 2 days.
Sorry, can you say that again?
Sequoia on the end there is the additional kennel tech on the weekend that we brought on recently.
Mhm.
And so she was having 3 days, so that one day would be a full training day. But that's obviously cut out for next year's budget since she's trained.
Okay. And so can you correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like the problem you're trying to solve is you were only having one tech on Saturday, Sunday,
Yep, we only have one person on the weekends.
and so it doesn't allow you to have kind of like front of the house, back of the house,
Correct.
essentially,
Correct,
like someone's trying to do both.
yes.
And our weekends, are they like busier as far as people coming in than weekdays?
They do get busier because most people, like, we've had several people who want to volunteer, but they can't volunteer until after 5 o'clock. And that's obviously when we're closed, so, you know, people's work schedules don't match up to come during the weekdays. And earlier for, you know, prioritizing, that's why we haven't been able to do our youth programs or go into the schools and do educational outreach, which most shelters are working towards now, because we're trying to keep the day-to-day with the shelter. And for the 3 hours with adoption applications, we have to call the landlord, we have to talk to the landlord, we have to call, check with the vet, those sort of things, so.
It just seems to me that things are just kind of a hodgepodge. I mean, 25 years ago, we had every freaking kennel full with a pit bull or a pit bull mix. And I'd clean all those kennels in less than, probably within 3 hours. You know, I mean, and there were other times, I mean, there were other people that would come in and help. And I guess I'm not seeing what to me would be a well-oiled machine. I think it's great to try and include the public and, you know, and do other things. But you got to do the basics first. And that's why I
I'm
kind of,
trying to get in.
you know, I mean, as far as the mission statement, and what are our requirements to have a compliant animal shelter? And that's the bottom line. And then the other things, I guess just from going through budgets, I think that nobody gets everything they want right out of the gate, and which kind of speaks to what the mayor was saying. But I mean, I think of the street department, I think of, you know, we've said, okay, I remember the first year, there were all kinds of things that when we started to actually kind of have revenue that we felt like we could spend. And, you know, everybody kind of, I mean, you just can't have everything all at once. The other thing is, how much do you work? I mean, for all of the years, Planned Parenthood and the animal shelter have worked together. I mean, we have wrapped presents with Hella for Christmas in July. We have done I mean, TPL has done so much fundraising through the years with this partnership. And have you reached out to them for, you know, for some of these things? I know they've helped with some medical issues because, let's face it, you had a lot of medical issues when you bring animals in, especially from out of state.
Well, we haven't had,
You know,
any help with any out-of-state animals. They've all been local.
But
animals.
I was thinking the puppies, the last bunch that were in, they were in a foster dog.
They were not vaccinated, and she was regularly taking them into public. They came from a shelter where they had a vet on staff, and we have all the medical paperwork that they were cleared by the vet.
So, I mean, I guess that's my point. I don't think that we're really so organized that we can do that. I mean, the flip side is we're incurring a lot of medical costs. And what about animals from within Colorado? And you know me, we've gotten our dogs from the animal shelter here, and they're hard to place dogs. Nobody else wanted them, but they're great animals, and they were older. Well, not the last one, but.
Within Colorado, we've only had Park County reach out, and we've helped them with 4 different dogs.
You know, because that might, I mean, I think Colorado tends to have similar standards.
All out of state have to be cleared through Colorado state standards to bring animals in.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as it seems like you have more incident of heartworm and certain diseases and parasites down there, which I know we have experienced here with animals that come up.
Right, all the
So-
dogs are heartworm tests, so we don't pull
Yeah.
heartworm dogs.
So, I mean, I just would like to see a kind of a plan. I mean, I think that you guys, I know the gals work hard and, you know, keeping the shelter clean with 3 dogs, it should be doable.
Right.
You know, it really should be. And so I guess I'd like to just feel, I'd like to have a better feeling about it. I feel like it's kind of, we're throwing spaghetti against the wall on some of this stuff and hoping that it sticks.
Well,
I have a couple thoughts on that. First of all, let me compliment the animal shelter. You know as well as I do, it's never looked better. It's cleaner. I love the new floor. It seems well organized in there when I've been in there. Just progress has been made. Don't get me wrong. I guess I would feel better about this whole conversation if there had been any attempt, any whatsoever, to keep costs under control. We had one pay period, about 3 pay periods ago. They were 74 hours over budget. 74 hours, people hours over budget. And it's been like that. It hasn't been, that's the worst one we've had, but I think this last one was 36 hours over budget. And the one before that was a big number. No attempt whatsoever to manage this budget. And if you look at the budget carefully, you'll see that the numbers, nothing in this budget is being managed, you know, to the budget. And I even said to you, I've been very careful not to demand management to the budget, but I'm not seeing any inclination to manage the whole process, just like you say.
so I feel like multiple things. I'm taking a manager course. Brenda and I have started a shelter manager course that we've still not been able to complete. We started it in July, I think August, July. So of course that also took us over budget, but I feel like being a first-time manager, if there were these concerns in the budget, because I don't have this on my computer, then bringing that to my attention more often would have been useful. And I know they did with the timesheets, but when you have to have hours, you have to have hours. And I mean, you know, just today, Shyler could have stayed another 2 hours to get more laundry and dishes and things done, but it's 5 o'clock and they go.
Steve, this will not be for public, you know, consumption during this time.
No comments at all from?
No comments at all from the public, right?
And so
Tracy?
that's it.
Tracy, Max,
Can I just say something real quick?
please go ahead.
We just don't have any, when I took over, there were no protocols, so we're trying not to reinvent the wheel and get other protocols from other shelters. Denver shelters have shared, Eagle, Summit, but we're still having to create them for our shelter. So we have about 100 pages of protocols, but we need probably 400 more because it's just the tip of the iceberg. And that's something that I can't be working on in my office when someone's in the back cleaning and the public comes in. Obviously, I'm going to stop what I'm doing to help the public. So it's just constantly getting pulled away to other things.
So the times then when you were way over hours, why?
I know one
What,
was
I mean,
for
what was the
Roswell.
situation? I mean, I'm
I'll tell
trying
you
to.
one thing that happens, and you touched on it a little bit, is that they're going out of state to get animals. When they do that, both Brenda and Caitlin go.
On one trip.
I thought it was more than one trip.
It was just to Roswell that both Brenda and I went.
That's all I remember, Sue Roswell.
Okay. Going out of state to bring dogs here. Actually, I kind of like the idea of that, but it's not within the scope of what this animal shelter should be. If we think as a city council, we should change the scope of is this animal shelter going to be a regional adoption animal shelter as opposed to an animal shelter that just takes care of our community? I don't really know. I mean, I don't have a great answer for that. But when that happens, of course, it blows up the hours, as you can well imagine.
So
And it's
a
just
few
a lot of
things.
different other different things that happen that we are not prepared for. It bothers me if we're bringing animals in that are not healthy and are exposing our own community animals because, you know, people dogs interact with each other. I mean, and things like that, it's not so easy as to go out and go pick up dogs and puppies or whatever, bring them here, sell them. It reminds me of a puppy mill almost. I mean, it's not, but I'm just, but
No.
versus,
would
I
tell you-
mean.
So there are multiple steps that we're going through. They have to be vet cleared, they have to be cleared from the other organizations.
Okay.
And for future transports, they're transporting them to us. We just needed to make a partnership and vet that they weren't just gonna give us sketchy dogs that were gonna kill dogs if they got loose. Now that we have those partnerships, they transport animals to us.
Max, go ahead.
That's good.
All right, so my suggestion, and this is it, is first of all, we do need to, Caitlin, you're doing a great job. I agree that the shelter looks better than it ever has before since I've been here, so kudos on you. Now I can also say, like, we all have opportunities for growth, and I think being fiscally responsible is one of those opportunities for growth for you. And I think that as you continue to learn how to be a manager, you're going to become better at that. But we do need you to become more fiscally responsible for this budget. Providing you with additional dollars is not probably the best way to become fiscally responsible. It's becoming fiscally responsible with what you're assigned, those dollars amounts that you're assigned to. My recommendation is twofold. Number one, perhaps closing the shelter to open to the public on some of those weekdays so you can get that priority work done. So you're not getting pulled away for people. Now, if there's somebody that comes in for an appointment, or if it's by appointment only, Tuesday through Thursday or something like that, and you can set aside an hour for an individual that's applying for an adoption or whatnot, that's great. But if you're like, it comes down to prioritizing time and figuring out what you need to focus on the most. And we would all love to provide the best customer service ever. And I don't ever want you to, think that you shouldn't strive to provide the best customer service for our community and for the animals you're taking care of. But there are certain times that you actually have to make that decision that perhaps you have to go away from A+ work and maybe take a B on a couple of items, right? And that may be that you can't be open all the time for the public between the hours of 10 and 3 or 10 and 4, where you have to do appointment by only. And so I would strongly consider to keep the budget as it stands and come up with a better or an alternative approach to those recommended by Caitlin, and see if there's a way to make it so she can do that priority work, can take that training, but not have those hours that pulls her away. And that's just me personally listening to everybody and all the discussions here. And I know next year you're going to come to us as council with a much better budget because you're going to have another additional year under your belt, and that's called growth, right? And so I'm not your supervisor, the mayor is, but that's my recommendation from my seat.
Thank you, Max. Anybody else? Tim?
Well, I think Max brings up some good points there. The original ask, or the original budget was, sorry,
52, 60.
Well, the original ask
was
was
50.
52 hours,
52 original.
or that was the original.
That was
Last
this year.
for this year.
It's 64.
And now we're going up to 64.
That's right. Plus, we added 6 hours to Brenda's time as well.
So, I mean, I think we made some compromise there already. And I think it is a good idea to just stick with that and prioritize our needs a little better, or differently than what is the ideal ask for Caleb. But so yeah, I would say let's stick with that and work on prioritizing our needs.
And hopefully you'll be able to, I think the more you know about something, then the better questions you can ask. And, I think that it is, as Max said, it's a huge learning curve because you've never been a shelter manager before. And and like I said, the shelter looks great. The gals, you guys work really hard. Jason too. I shouldn't say gals. Jason as well. But I think that you really need to kind of focus and hone in on the absolute things that need to be done. And then as time allows, then you can do some of these other things. But yeah, your policies, procedures, all of those things are important. I mean, that's how younger staff's going to be learning, like Shiler, as they, grow up and come up through the ranks.
Not quite yet. In a minute, I'll have you come up to the microphone. I do want to say this to Caitlin. Nothing gets done without a vision. And I do appreciate a vision. In fact, if I have managers who don't have a vision, they don't have a great deal of value in terms of the future of our city. So I don't want you to give up on your vision. But right now, under this budget, I happen to agree with several comments. And I think that we need to pull together a process that makes sense for our shelter. So, Brenda, would you like to come up and speak at the microphone, please?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks, everybody. I want to start off with a quick question. How many of you have gone to the animal shelter since it's there up to the present day?
I have not.
Your daughter has.
My daughter has. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. I'd like to share a little bit about myself. I've been here for quite a few times. My girls have grown here. I did not know that there was an animal shelter in Leadville until my daughter was about 8, that she started volunteering. It states in all of my letter that you guys got, but I know we've gone, basically, I want to let you guys know that there has been a lot of growth, like Mayor Lobby said. One of the things that I am sad is that to me and to a lot of the community members that I asked for support, a lot of them did not know we existed. A lot of them don't really see the support because many of them have seen improvements during Main Street and a lot of things. We are just not there for the community. And a lot of people, if we don't tell them we're here, they don't know we're here, just like I did a long time ago. And one of the things that I do want to state as well as we're not, I mean, we can be compared to a lot of other dependencies like the fire department, but basically it's a different, very different entity because nobody there in the other entity cares for an animal or another thing that cannot rely on itself. We're the only entity here in Leadville, away from at least 20 miles away from another county that can care for animals. And so that's what Kayla and I have been trying to get back to, because in case of an emergency, which was the case, I want to share that this is my passion, caring for animals. I have a lot of animals myself, but in the time being where you can't do anything for them, your hands are tied. Imagine your children just staying home in a snowstorm with no electricity, no water, no nothing. That's basically what they are for us. They're our kids. We care for them on a daily basis. And they're our family. So we want to find them a basic family where they can care for them as well, just as we did here. And a lot of people don't understand that because they're not, I've heard a lot being, I'm not a dog person. I'm not a cat person. Well, you're a person. Do you care for another human being? That's basically what we do. The difference is that other people can talk for themselves, can speak, and can move and can rely on themselves. These animals cannot. They rely on us. Either they come from in county, out of state, wherever they come from, they're here now and we care for them. I've seen a lot of in county and in state transports coming into our shelter, surrenders, but before Caitlin was there, they had to be put down because behavior-wise, Colorado does not have very good laws and a lot of people are not trained in this. We have the advantage of having her here. And, you know, I have not seen a dog or a cat been euthanized for behavior issues
before, I don't know if you guys have noticed or have seen in our reports before, we had actually one of our staff members got mauled, and this was way back before. Just like she shares her experiences 25 years back, I will too as well. And we were lucky to not get sued. That staff member did not die because of bad management, because of intaking an animal that wasn't supposed to be there. First of all, and it was not, it was just improper management. Behavior wise, the dog shouldn't have been there. It shouldn't have been handled by our staff member, and our staff member was trained as to be. It could have been me, it could have been her, it could have been management. It's not like that. I'm not scared to go into our shelter and say, well, this dog mauled me. It's not, it's changed a lot. And so I just wanted to share that. And so when you say how much time do you need, or can the proposal be adjusted? I would like to invite everybody to go in. Now, right now, we only have 2 dogs, and you'd be surprised what we do there. Because it's not just, oh yeah, you go in and care and clean for the animals. There's a lot of things to do there. Minute by minute, I can write it down what we do, just like Caitlin did. It varies because we have different cats and dogs, but we are a small shelter, and it takes a lot of maintenance. It takes a lot of time to keep it just like it is, and look as it is, function as it is. And I do not agree with, we're not a well-oiled machine there. I have not been working at a place that has been functioning as it is right now. I've worked throughout a lot of jobs in my lifetime. I've had several animal experience and jobs as well as management jobs. And just, this is really awesome because, you know, in other words, we function, we communicate as properly as we can through the internet. If I'm not there, I know everything is functioning and I can check on it. If I am there, then I know Caitlin, if she's not there, she can communicate with me as well. We're not, just because we don't physically work that day, we are functioning and we are working and we're doing what we can for all these animals and community members. We work a lot, even though I mean, I don't know how you guys function and your job, you know, it might be an 8 to 5 job. Ours is a lot. It states in letters also, we have a lot of shelter employees and staff members go through a lot of emotional, social support. Some have to be going through therapy and they break down a lot. It's just because we give it our best effort and we do the best for them. But since they don't talk, like I said, they don't self-rely. It's sometimes we have our hands tied to do what we can, but we're working all the time and moving as much as we can to do for the animal shelter. It's just sad that we don't receive the support we can. And so that's why we try and manage as we can. We try and get by what we have right now. But Saturdays and Sundays were prior to on-call. I was there also on some Saturdays and on some Sundays. And I had to adjust not going during the week to go in Saturdays and Sundays. It's not all the time, but it's as staff needs it, as staff training goes. And we try and prioritize those hours so we don't go over. We do a lot of rotation, which is if I have to go in on Saturdays, Caitlin already might be over hours. I communicate with her, she goes in, I'm aware she has her training. And so we just rotate and communicate as we can. Our staff members and our community members do as much as they can. They go in, they message us a lot through Messenger. So it's not just a job that is from 8 to 5, unfortunately. We have to, I can set an example of a few weeks ago, a friend of mine was driving by the animal shelter and she said, do you guys have electricity? I said, we should. Why? And she said, well, because somebody just ran over an electricity post and it looks like the animal shelter doesn't have any. So I called Caitlin and I said, it was about like 6:30, 6:45. Do you know if we have electricity? We should, is the same thing she said, because our shift ended at 5. And so I drove up there. I was heading from the stables and coming back into town from my house. The fire department was there. And they wouldn't let me get close until I told them, this is my position. I have animals in the shelter. I need to know an ETA on when we're gonna have electricity because it's cold. It was under 30 degrees already. And in the shelter, it being cement, flooring and walls, it gets even colder. And so I needed to prioritize a time when they would have heat. If not, we needed to go back to, well, Caitlin and I need to move to what are we gonna do to move these dogs and cats out of the shelter? That goes back to, we can't get all of these protocols in place because we're just being pulled away from the important things we do. And so, you know, it's prioritizing as we can and go as we can and work just as we can, basically, because that's how we function. There has been a lot of things that have been changed to the best. A lot of people have been coming in and being more involved. I feel like the Latin community has come in more. We've been educating a lot because they think we spay and neuter there. We do not. Because of prior management doing rabies there, we do not do that. That was illegal. And so we have to re-educate our community and letting them know what services we give to them. We had a really good turnout on the adoption event, and it was really comforting because I saw my friends there. I saw youth, all kinds of people coming in, not just regular people that would like to adopt. And so it was just not in county, it was from also all the state of Colorado coming into Leadville, which is why would you drive over 200 miles to adopt a pet? I just want to state that I know it takes a lot and you guys do a lot for us. Vet bills, Dr. Lindemeyer gives us a very, very, very good price. I know it's a lot right now with the bills, but we're trying to ensure that they're all vaccinated, and we also got a spay neuter contract, which lets us go within 90 days. So that lets us adjust a little bit about the adoption fees. And because if you were to adopt, you have to spay and neuter the animal. And so we don't have that high adoption bill, but we still try and do what we can. Dr. Lindemeyer helps us with lowering fees and just, you know, he helps us a lot too with visits, because sometimes we just show up, and if this dog has an adoption home, then he vaccinates, and he tries to prioritize a lot with us. Cindy's working with us as well. So we do have support through a lot of just partnerships that Caitlin has been building within the past. I can assure you that we've lost vets because of prior management. We used to work with BV vets. We used to work with Sunville Valley vets and Breckenridge vets, and they don't want to work with us anymore. But that's in the past. We need to work forward, and we need to look into more partnerships, but we always welcome them, and we're always trying to communicate with everybody that comes into the shelter and prioritize just the best for these animals, because we are their care. They don't have a care, even if they come from Leadville or they come from New Mexico. For us, they're the same care that we need to provide. I don't know if you guys have any questions for me.
Thank you, Brenda. Any questions for Brenda? I do want to say, you know, a couple things. Since 2019, so in the next 3 years, we have increased the budget by 40%. You know, and I'm just, you know, kind of talking in terms of support.
Mhm.
And also when Caitlin and Brenda came to me earlier this year and wanted to redo the floor, and the floor has been an ongoing issue in the animal shelter for as long as we can remember. We get written up all the time. We've tried a couple things, didn't work. And this was an expensive fix, but I agreed to that, and I'm glad I did. It is a marvelous change for the animal shelter. I think the support's there. It may not all be in the package you want it right now. I assure you the support is there.
Yes, I think ongoing also communication throughout. I know prior, Debbie used to let me know that each month, I believe, she would meet with you for ongoing with just management, with training, and everybody with the schedules, any increases that she would ask for us for employment, and all that. So I don't know if lately or before, prior to me accepting this role, you've been communicating with Caitlin, but it could be something to work in the
I
future.
think it
towards that.
would be very nice to have a regularly scheduled meeting, go over the budget, look where we are. See, the budget, I've said before, the budget is not absolute, it's a tool. And if some things in the budget, the floor, the classic example, are gonna go over, but overall, we have to think of it as a guiding document to try and hold everybody in the city to task.
Our city is growing. We've had a lot of growth in front of the shelter and behind, and I've seen at least 2 to 3 dogs per household. And the new ones, I was driving by and 2 were on, like, just sitting down on one of the decks. A lot of more people are coming in town and they're just walking their dogs, or they're coming by to visit the animal shelter. We make conversation with them and they say, well, I just moved in, I bought a second home, or, so it is growing. And that, towards the growth, hopefully your budget can grow a little bit more during the future. If not today, then towards the future, like we waited for.
I have a couple more questions. How much has the animal shelter budget increased from last year? Is it 11.32%?
11.32%.
So that's how much more this year we're allocating than last year.
That's correct.
Okay.
We did several things. We expanded hours. We also increased salaries, salary ranges for everybody in the animal shelter. And a couple of line items, like one of the things we talked about was animal expenses, and they've been a problem. So we increased that from 9,500 to 12,000, just in terms of looking at where the budget was being.
The overall budget is up 11%, but wage salary is up more than that.
Yeah.
It is.
This budget.
Mhm.
And is that comparable growth to other departments?
A little higher than most departments. If you look at most departments, they're in the 8% range overall.
Looks like streets are like 8.1.
Yeah.
And I know you said you can't always compare apples
Yeah.
to.
Police department.
Because the amount of grant money that comes in.
When a department has grant money sitting in there, and the police department was an anomaly this year because of 2 grants they received. And so they made that budget look like it had expanded dramatically when it actually had not.
Mhm. I'm having some competing thoughts here, and partially, one thing I'm seeing is, okay, that seems like a good amount of growth. Like there is an increase in that budget, and there is an increase to 64 hours from 52. On the other hand, I do worry we might be, I think there's a fallacy sometimes where we don't give someone more resources until they've gotten their house in order in a way that is sufficient. But sometimes people need those resources to get that house in order. And I know that's a slippery slope, so I don't want to say that's always the solution. But I also know that what Caitlin's asking for here is $12,400.
Not quite correct, but
No?
Without FICA and Medicare.
Okay. So how much would you add to that?
I think it was an $18,000, wasn't it?
18.
It was in his document.
It's 18.
Right, so what do you add to make it a loaded estimation?
18%.
18%.
It's close to that. That would include, it might be a little less because the part-timers would not get health insurance.
That's possible.
So maybe
Round it up to
15%.
16,000. Anyway, given that our sales tax revenue was pretty conservatively estimated, I also don't think there's a lot of hazard in approving that either.
No, I would agree. So I think the way you need to think of it is not in terms of dollars. I mean, you could do that for every department, based on sales tax revenue. If you wanted to just, basically you'd have to throw that one number out the door in terms of our revenue projection. But if you did that, then you could do that for every department. It's not fiscally responsible. I would say this,
I'm
you
not
should,
proposing we do it for every department.
Okay.
I'm proposing that we do it for $16,000.
I'm just saying, you
And I
shouldn't be
do
thinking in
also
terms of money. You should be thinking in terms of the hours.
Yeah.
This request is not about money. It's about hours. Okay, it's from 64 hours to 80 hours. Now, if you think that's justified, then okay, then maybe we go down that road. We have to find the revenue, but that's a whole different, thing. Actually, it's pretty easy. But nonetheless,
Mhm.
you have to decide based on what you know in terms of the management of this shelter, the size of the shelter, the number of animals and residents in the shelter. Do you need 80 hours plus 36 hours plus 30 hours? Remember, it's not just the 80 hours, it's the totality of all the people who work in that shelter.
Excuse me, Mayor, Max had a comment and Dana joined us also.
Oh, hi, Dana.
Hi. Sorry
Max?
I'm late.
You had a comment? Go ahead.
Yep, it just comes back down to being fiscally responsible. I mean, that's where hours that I'm going back. The animal shelter is in the best shape it ever has been in. Great job, right? That said, A+ work, sometimes you can't have A+ work all the time, right? 3 hours to clean a kennel in the morning is a lot of time. If what I heard from Caitlin was when she's in the front of the house during the day and there's people coming in during the midweek, she can't do her job to do other things and so I say we should come up with a way, another adaptive management strategy to do the work and actually prioritize the work. I mean, that's just me personally, and become fiscally responsible as an animal shelter. You're all over budget this year in fiscal year 2021, and we're asking you for more dollars. I'm asking you to show that it's fiscally responsible. That's come up with adaptive management strategies and keep up the good work. You're doing fantastic work. I don't know how else to say it, but like I have to tell my employees, and it's the hardest thing, right? Because I have really good employees that want to do the best job ever, right? But we have so much incoming that we can't afford to do the best job ever because we get backlogged and continue to pack up and can't do the priority work. So they have to go, and we're talking about not a failing grade, but B work instead of A+ work. And so that's what I'm saying is you have to find how to gain some additional bandwidth without additional hours. That's what I'm looking for right now. Like I said earlier in my discussion, if I had 3 hours every day to go through emails and phone calls, and I'll promise you this, I have more emails and phone calls coming into my desk on a given daily basis than the animal shelter. And I have about an hour to do that every day, not 3 hours. I think there's some efficiencies to be gained at the animal shelter.
That's awesome. No offense, but you're sitting at an office answering emails. We're up moving at least, if I would put a pacer on Shyler, she would do at least 2,500 steps minimum in the morning out of how she moves.
I'm not discounting the work that you're doing. I'm not discounting the work you're doing. I'm just saying, for what I'm hearing is that in the schedule, as it stands right now, I have from 8 to 11 a.m. on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then it says managers are working on returning emails, phone calls, and sorting through applications daily. That is 6 hours for 2 people per day to work through returning emails, phone calls, and sorting through application. I ask you, how many emails, phone calls, and applications are you sorting through on a daily basis? That's what I'm asking.
A minimum
To account for 3 hours of that.
minimum.
Yeah.
But yeah, Caitlin says it's a rough outline of what we're doing. It's not like the exact breakdown, but if you guys need it, we can do that.
No, I doubt there's such thing as an exact breakdown. on it.
We just didn't want to go.
That was
Yeah.
today, 5 tomorrow.
We know
two.
what- we know
No.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we don't want to do like a minute by minute breakdown.
Yeah, that's not.
All right, Max, thank you. Tracy, any comments?
I agree with Max. I think there are some efficiencies to be gained. I did stop by the animal shelter today because I hadn't been there in many years and it looks fantastic, super clean. But yeah, it's, yeah, I just say that I agree with Max and Jane and that if you look back at the budget from 3 years ago, it was 129,000 and now we're at 180,000. And a quick calculation says the animal shelter costs us $500 a day for 3 dogs and 2 cats. So I think it's a good budget. We've increased the hours. So I think we need to live with this budget this year and revisit next year.
I just want to state, when I was 3 years ago, people were being sent home. That takes a lot off of the employee budget. And it's stated before, it was brought up to Mayor Lobby and our secretary that all of these concerns were not being met with management because there was only one person there. Staff members were being sent home, so that was a lot of reduction in hours and during budget as well. And so that's why it states, but just everything is not explained exactly how it was because it doesn't ask for an explanation. We go back to it's just numbers. So all the numbers is what you see, not an explanation of why it became this number.
Okay, thank you, Brenda.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts? What is the will of city council under these circumstances? Should we stick with this budget? Do we grant the additional 16 hours, I guess it is, from 64 to 80 to fulfill the vision of Caitlin? It was suggested that maybe we don't have to be open, the front door doesn't be open except by appointment every single day during the week, especially if weekends are the busier time. I think there are management techniques that could be put in play in terms of caring for the public, but doing so in a reasonable and fiscally responsible manner.
I would agree with, Max really presented, I thought, very well. He articulated, sometimes for me, it's difficult because I have spent a lot of time at the animal shelter over the years. And it's near and dear to my heart. But sometimes just throwing money at it with not having organization and a plan and I would like to, that's what I would like to see going forward for next year. And, I know they need an industrial washer. And, these are things that can be considered for, going forward. So I think that there are some management efficiencies that can be learned and I think will be valuable and it's part of job growth. And I think, given the fact that this is Caitlin's first, stab being a shelter manager, I think she's done well. I think she's, has a great staff. And I think that this is part of the process. It's part of that learning process. And we've all been there before.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I would agree with the approach of staying with what's in the budget here. And also, I would agree that Max has made some excellent points. And another thing that Max always brings up as well is let's prioritize the need to do's at the shelter and then make the nice to do's secondary for now. until we can get the animal shelter running efficiently.
Okay.
I can support this budget.
All
I
right.
just wanted to
All right.
also put out those other considerations that
No, this is a
sometimes
very
more
good conversation.
resources
Thank
help
you.
someone grow.
Okay, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have municipal court. Judge Floyd.
Passed in the packet a memo that I wrote and provided to Donna to accompany our budget request. This should be short, sweet, and simple, since we're not asking for any increase. In fact, we've asked to decrease our budget by, I think it was 1.5% or something. And part of the reason for that is we've been able to achieve some efficiencies in the court thanks to Ms. Smith when she was, or Kish, I'm sorry, Diane, when she was the court clerk, as well as with Kelsey Conan, who's currently stepping in to help with the court clerk duties. I'm not going to read this memo to you. I'd like to just highlight a couple of things real quick. And Max, I know he's on a short time if he hasn't had a meeting already. So just to make it brief, I mean, we continue to have challenges, obviously, with having to convene court and operate with the COVID pandemic still affecting us, as we all see with our masks on tonight. But we've managed to do that, I think, quite effectively over the last year in terms of technology that we've been able to use, including thanks to the mayor and additional technology that has been installed in the courtroom to allow us to better connect with folks via the city's Zoom platform. I also want to say too, that because of that, the Zoom link is online. If you're around, don't want to come in person, the second Wednesday of the month and want to listen in on court, you're always welcome. It is open to the public. We continue to offer the arrangements and such virtually, but it's interesting that even though we have publicized this and offered it out, the majority of folks who do come to court still attend in person. And I think part of that has to do with the fact that not everybody has either good cell service, good internet, or good technology in order to connect in our community. So once again, I noted in the memo that we still have the partnership with CMC, that if folks want to attend virtually and don't have access to a computer, the college is making their computer lab available to them. One of the biggest challenges we continue to have is with finding interpreters to serve our court, as I mentioned last year, and continues to be the case this year. We do not have access. There are no certified interpreters in our community. The closest one's down in Eagle, and unfortunately, we share that person with the county and district court, which they usually get priority because of the type of docket they have. So we are working on trying to grow our own. And to that end, I was successful last year in working again to partner with CMC to start, have them embrace the idea of starting an introduction to interpretation and translation, which they did offer. Unfortunately, they couldn't find an instructor for the Leadville campus, but Rifle said, hey, we want this program too. So they found one in Rifle and they were able to live stream it for this fall semester. It's currently being offered again for the spring semester. So you'll see as part of my budget request too, is, one of the things I met with some of the student leaders there to see if I could entice some of them to take this class and be more involved in translation services in our community. And one of the things they mentioned is, those who are on curriculums, adding this type of a class might have an impact on the overall budget, the funding they have for. And so I don't want that to be a barrier, especially since the cost of tuition and fees is $295 for the class, which I don't think is very burdensome for perhaps our court, the city, to offer to allow a couple of people, and I've requested funds to have 2 individuals take the course starting in the spring. And what I'm super excited about is I was introduced to a young woman who's new to our community, who is a native Spanish speaking naturalized citizen, who actually was a lawyer in Colombia before she moved. She married an American and moved to this country. Unfortunately, her law degree isn't effective in this country. So She's not looking to become a lawyer, but with any type of background in legal services and stuff, I think that would definitely help. And so she has indicated that she's available to take that class. She also came and observed court last month to see how things work. Plans to come each time we have a docket just to listen and watch and see how things go. So I'm really excited about the potential opportunity to work with her in, again, growing our own local interpreter. But I also would like to have a backup, someone who, and you might ask, why does somebody who's a native Spanish speaking person need to go to a translation class? Well, because there are specific things you have to do as a translator. It's not just the ability to communicate back and forth with someone, but also specific aspects, and especially legal interpretation, being able to get the words right and that type of thing. So, I think that's an important aspect that we're trying to grow on. And the other aspect to it is, I find it very uncomfortable when we have non-English speaking folks come for their arraignments, and we don't have an interpreter in court to help them, because that means we have to figure out some way to have them understand we can't hear their arraignment that day. We have to send them away, and they'll have to come back, because then we have to schedule an interpreter for their arraignment, because they're entitled to have an interpreter for every stage of the process. And so by having someone who can actually be either on call or at the docket each time, because we don't know these people until they show up in court, whether they can speak English or not. And so, to have somebody available will help, I think, community overall. And also, I hope with Luisa Pereira is her name, I'm hoping that having someone in the court too, doing the interpretation, that looks like a lot of these people, will help give them some comfort that the court is there to serve. It's not just in a punitive vein, to address the issues that they're having with their citation or such. So that with the interpreter part. Another thing I'm pleased that has been somewhat successful, and I'm sorry Caitlin left because she actually referenced this in her budget materials, is the Useful Public Service program we started last year, and we've been able to get some folks diverted into that. And one of the reasons being is that a lot of the folks that come into our court are there because they have financial challenges. And so, sentencing them to, a hefty fine or something is not necessarily going to be productive, because they can't afford to pay it. We don't have the resources to try to collect it. Even if we did, you can't get, blood out of a turnip essentially. So having an option where we can have some sort of a productive sentence that not only serves them in terms of addressing their violation in the community, but also serves the city by allowing them to essentially work off their fines. And we've sent a number of folks to the animal shelter this year to help with that. And they do the type of stuff, it was interesting listening to the conversation, the type of stuff that a lot of staff members aren't going to want to do. That picking up the poop, cleaning the kennels, all that kind of stuff. And that's it. I tell you, if you want a deterrent for people not to commit petty crimes in this community, picking up a bunch of dog poop might be effective. But I also like to say is one thing that's not in my memo, a couple of things that I wanted to touch on. Our prosecutor is very aggressive in negotiating plea agreements. We rarely actually have cases that go to trial because he tends to plead them out, which there's nothing wrong with that. And it's not like it's a rubber stamp. I review the plea agreements, and if it's inappropriate, I have communications with him as to what I'd like to see. One thing I've started to do, though, is to encourage him with some of these folks when he's talking with them about the plea agreements to discuss what their financial circumstances are, because giving me a plea agreement that they agree to that has, once again, a hefty fine that they're not going to be able to afford to pay because they're not working makes no sense. So one of the things I've started to encourage him is to consider having useful public service in the plea agreements as well. So that, and if it's somebody who can't work at the animal shelter, there's stuff that can be done at City Hall. I know before Ms. Dallas left, I was working with her in terms of identifying tasks that we could do here, whether it's cleaning out the basement that I'm too afraid to go to, or other stuff like that. There are things we can do that will help offset some of the burden that some of these other offices and agencies have, especially, and that's what I was thinking with the animal shelter. Maybe that's something we can help free up some of the time so they can do, focus on the other priority things that y'all mentioned. Other than that, I listed a bunch of things that projects and tasks we started last year that we continue to advance. I'm happy to answer questions on that. The one thing I wanted to mention, you know, even with the pandemic, after we got through the first couple of months after I was appointed, we've been averaging 15, 20 cases a month on our docket, which has been pretty good until the last 3 months. I got the docket for December today, and it will be the 3rd month in a row that we have no new citations on it. No traffic, no criminal offenses in 3 months. Now, I understand that there's a huge shortage with the police department here. There's a shortage with, you know, the sheriff, whatever. But it concerns me if there's got to be some traffic enforcement going on. Suddenly people then become angels and they're driving perfectly and they're carrying their insurance cards and all of that kind of stuff. So that's one thing I wanted to just bring to y'all's attention, because if you start to look at budget numbers and you start to see, well, we don't have a lot of stuff coming in, or we don't have a lot of things going, we have absolutely no control over that in the court. We can only address what is brought to us through the police department. So I've talked to the chief. I attended a staff meeting with the chief and the police officers to talk about municipal court. And, you know, some of them have the impression that they'd much prefer to write stuff into the county because there are more options. I guess it's a higher profile type thing if it's written into the county, but I inform them that doing that harms their department, because part of the surcharge that we, you know, log on top of any sentences goes towards their training and stuff. So I've encouraged them, and if you have the opportunity, I ask y'all to encourage them too, to make sure that the police department, if there are offenses committed within the city's boundaries that is a violation of the municipal code, to please write those into the municipal court.
Did you make that clear to them in your meeting?
I did.
Okay.
I
thank
did.
you.
So that's just something, and it's not like I'm trying to drum up more business, but I think it's just a detriment to the city if we're not enforcing our municipal code consistently for all types of infraction.
I'm surprised the county hasn't pushed back. You know, the district court hasn't pushed back and said, we're getting all of these municipal citations. You know, what are you guys doing?
Well, and I'll be honest with you, it very well could be they're not writing them at all. Part of it, because there's also somewhat of a backlash from legislation that was passed last year with police officers not wanting to assume the risk of personal liability for their activities. So I have talked with Judge Jonathan Seamus in the county court, and he says their numbers are down too. So I'm not saying this is just something endemic to the city's police department, but that it seems to be prevalent overall. I just don't want y'all to think, oh, what are you doing? There's nothing going on in municipal court. We still have a lot that we're working on, but we're also taking the opportunity to enhance some of the things that we offer, you know, making sure all of our forms are in Spanish as well as English, looking for grants to help pay for some of the things that I'm asking for, you know, in terms of either money for additional training, for classes, for tuition, for other resources that we can have, you know, for use in the court. So, and to that end, I don't know if since this is the only budget workshop I've attended, I'm sorry. If one of the things I've mentioned is I know that the county's in the process of replacing its scanning equipment. They're going to move it into the front foyer. And so I asked the sheriff what they're going to do with the scanning equipment they had upstairs. And I don't know, she said they're looking to sell it. And I was like, you know, if there's an opportunity for the city to buy it on the cheap and then use some of perhaps the community service officers who aren't post-certified yet to monitor the screening as it comes through, that might be an option. And I'll be honest with you, we did have a couple instances this last year where there was cause for concern as to the court security. And thanks to Ms. Kish in terms of having an almost hot button texting the police department saying, hey, can you send somebody up? You know, somebody's getting a little more agitated than might be comfortable with. You know, the security should be a concern, not just for the court, but for this building, period. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there. You know, otherwise you can read the comments in the memos about, you know, the transition from Ms. Kish to Kelsey as the court clerk. What I've been doing in terms of my professional development as the municipal judge with the training and attending, you know, meetings. And I'm kind of, it's embarrassing, almost funny though, to say that I attended the Municipal Judges Association conference the end of October, which was 3 days in beautiful downtown Glenwood Springs. During that meeting, there was discussion about the makeup of the board for that organization, and they feel they don't have probably as much representation voices from rural communities like ours as they would like to. And so I've been approached about considering serving on that board next year. So that's a possibility. And one of the issues is, it's because I don't hesitate to pipe up when they're saying, hey, just do this, to say, we have no resources to do that. When you've got your Broomfields and Thorntons and all who are paying their Thornton, who just is searching for a municipal judge, offering a salary of $170,000 a year, there is a disparity between our rural
You may not
communities.
move.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm not interested in that, but just to say, they don't understand the context. And so I'll look for the opportunity, I hope, to serve in that role.
Thank you.
Any questions on the numbers that we submitted?
No, I hope that the number you and I talked about for the interpreter is adequate. We don't know.
Yeah.
Do you have any feel for the demographics of you? I don't know how you'd even get at that, of how often you need an interpreter. You need it every session?
I would like to have someone on call every session. I will say that if you look at just the names on our docket, most of the time, at least half, if not more, of the defendants that are appearing in our court are Latinx. And so I would like to be prepared to have, and even if they speak English, especially if we have minors, a lot of our young kids who mess up, everybody makes mistakes, come into the court, they have to bring their parents with them. Their parents might not speak English. And we have to, even if they're not the defendant, we have to provide them witnesses.
As a
Witnesses for
community,
cases.
we are about 40% Latinx,
Yeah.
give or take. I don't know what the actual number is.
Yeah.
So it's significant.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is in terms of the city of Leadville, but that almost doesn't matter because citations could be from anybody in the county. or
Anybody,
outside the
or as I like to say, people here on vacation who leave on probation.
county. What is your vision for the future of the municipal court?
Oh, boy, is it grandiose or what? No, one of the things I want to point out that I'm kind of excited about, because it looks like it might actually happen, is with the Justice Center Task Force and the building of the new Justice Center. That from the beginning, and I've been involved in that initiative since 2016, the first go round with the ballot initiative that failed. It had always been something that was just primarily focused on the county. County courts, county jail, county operations. And I've been pleased that I've been able to lend a voice to say, the city needs to be involved in this too. The city, because we have a historic city hall that has limited security, limited technology, limited facilities and stuff like that, that if you're going to build a multi-million-dollar facility, the economies of scale makes sense to combine those, to have it so you can share some operations, some space and stuff.
And if they've
with the
got
police
two
department.
courtrooms, it seems like if you're, only meeting once a month,
That's exactly
that
what
should
I'm
be
talking about.
very easy.
So the hope is, and we are now actually expressly on the plan where it says, court and municipal court hearing rooms, and the police department has space there and all that kind of stuff. And what I like about that is, everybody's talking about growth. We're going to continue to grow. The city's going to have to grow its resources, staffing and such. It's not a big courtroom, but it's space up there that could be better used for other purposes once we can move down the street into the new community justice center. So, but my vision is to continue to improve. I want, I don't want folks coming into our court thinking, oh my gosh, where am I? Especially if we start getting more attorneys, which we might with short-term rental issues and stuff, if we start doing enforcement on that. We rarely have attorneys come into court now because most of our defendants can't afford them. And they have to be facing a violation that would result in a jail sentence in order for us to appoint attorneys for them. And so that rarely happens. And we have a prosecutor that, because we don't have a jail, doesn't seek jail time, even though technically, if the violation says you can be subject to it, they still would be entitled to representation if they meet the guidelines. So they have to be indigent in order to do
We
that.
do have $1,000 in the budget for that purpose. We've never used it.
Well, and I think that's because it's never come into play.
Right.
But anyway, I want people to have, hate to say this, I want defendants who come into Leadville to have the same experience they do down the hill in Eagle or Summit or whatever. We might not have the high revenue resources there, but I want everybody, and I want our citizens who are here as victims and, as participants, witnesses and stuff, to realize that we are a valid and helpful community resource.
Any questions for the judge? Tracy, Dana?
No, thank you for all the information.
All right. We did lose Max as we expected.
Yeah, sorry about that.
He's got hockey to attend.
Very thorough, thank you.
Well, and my pleasure, it continues to be my honor to serve in this way, not only for the city, but for our community. And so, and my door is always open, comments, questions, concerns. Again, I invite you to come. Don't come this month because we're not having new cases, but it can be very interesting to see how things flow in the municipal court. So you're always welcome.
I would say this, when you go to municipal court, you and I, you will see a side of our society that you may or may not have known existed.
Yes. That has been the most humbling experience for me. I've been in this role now just about a year and a half. And the most humbling aspect is, I had an inkling of some of the struggles in our community, but they have become face forward, over the last year and a half. There are a lot of folks seriously struggling. And that's why, I came into this position saying, I'm more about restorative justice versus punitive justice. Let's find the underlying issues. And so we have programs we routinely refer them to help address the underlying issues that they're facing that cause them to violate the municipal ordinance. So that's still my goal and ambition to address those, because I don't want the same people coming into court every month. It's just, that's not good for anybody.
Yeah.
So
Anything else for the judge?
thank you all
very
again.
much.
Appreciate the
Thanks, Judge.
opportunity.
Okay, next up, we have CTF, basically our parks budget. You have the CTF manager here?
I don't think so.
That'd be you. then.
Yeah.
Yeah, just give us some insight into these expenditures and what
I
we're
think
trying to
that-
accomplish.
Yeah, I think basically it's the same as what we've done in the past with, the table home guides, a percentage of those. Goes into CTF, and then the Sites Park maintenance. And we've taken on some extra Kids Park. Now, that included in CTF,
And we're
so
doing more down Street Park.
Elm Street Park, yes.
I really would like for us to expand the usefulness of Elm Street Park. Or to talk to the street department. They're kind of split. Some of them hate that fence, some of them love it. I want that fence down. Unless we're gonna put concertina wire on the top. And make it the new jail. It's awful. It looks like a prison. So I'll be working on that this spring. And what I hope to do with that fence, and there's a lot of it, is use it to create a holding yard for the police department.
For vehicles.
We don't have any place right now. Anyway, sorry.
Just these funds come from, these are lottery funds, basically.
Yeah.
So,
Do those come? How often do we get those funds?
Quarterly.
And
Okay.
basically, we spend all of those funds.
We don't.
Usually we hold some.
We have about $46,000 in reserve right now. That right?
Sounds about right.
What page are you on? Don?
And what are those funds restricted to?
Parks,
Parks.
museums, and then maintenance, infrastructure. There's some things like, they're kind of funny because they won't pay for the alarm system to take her home.
Yeah.
You just have to, you just have to understand
Page
what
13.
you can and can't use it on.
CTF.
That includes like toilet paper, paper towels, they'll pay for things like that, so. And then, of course, the shoveling.
Shoveling snow, maintenance of the
snow.
bathrooms, cleaning of bathrooms, maintenance of the parks. Those are the things we're focusing on right now.
Have we thought any more about the State Street Park? What the status?
I'd love to say yes, but I haven't had time to even.
I know,
even
I'm
think about
just so we keep still remember that is one of our
City
parks. that-
Council, if we go clean it up every month, it's gonna keep looking nice.
Sure. Chance for
The
us,
park-
that's slim and none.
That park's right out my back door. and My kids play in it a lot. We use it.
Yeah,
But yeah, I see people there a lot, sitting on the bench, watching the sunset.
Do you really?
Yeah, walking their
So
dogs.
you think it's pretty useful then?
I absolutely do.
I didn't think so, but
Yeah.
I'm glad to be.
I would be
wrong.
interested to collect some use data, but just, I can see it out my bedroom window, so I see it all the time.
That's a really interesting perspective.
The
I don't
people
think I
who live in
realized.
the campground walk
They-
their dogs there.
Well, I
Yeah,
know
and they
they're
don't
all
pick up
dogs
their,
there.
Well, some are better than others. of course,
yes,
but
that's true.
Yeah.
Some,
That's true everywhere in the city.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
parks seem to be a particularly favorite target for anybody walking their dogs.
It is, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
We should just say,
It is
please
used.
walk your
It's a
dogs in the
used
lot
space.
next to the park.
Yeah, who owns that?
I don't know.
Oh,
Because it's private there, right?
Yes.
Where
It's
yes,
about 2 lots from
Glacier.
there to the street.
Glacier.
Anyway,
the Glacier family owns that.
any
again?
comments or thoughts on the
They
CTF
lived across
funds?
the street.
I know that, but did it sell when they sold?
That's what I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I do know.
Any other thoughts or comments on CTF funds?
So is there some I mean, we don't have to discuss it now, but is there some opportunity to do more with those funds?
The answer is yeah, we have some in reserve. I keep wanting to do one of several things. Kind of expand. Zeiss Park has come so far in the last 4 years.
It has.
That's awesome.
However, I'd like to put that rock to work. Put a slide up, put a ladder on one side and a slide on the other side. Kids play on that rock all the time.
Oh, they do.
And just turn it into more of a playscape, and that wouldn't take very much. I'd really like to do more at Elm Street Park. Get the fence down, put some picnic tables. Doesn't have to be fancy. Just make it a place where the neighborhood can come use it
gather.
and they don't feel like they're in prison.
Where is Elm Street Park? I don't even
It's on
know.
Elm Street.
Right behind Rutke's old,
It is about 400 blocks from Elm Street.
400 Wall Street?
Those little gazebos that they have are nice, that like Ice Palace Park,
I love
and they're
those.
fairly cheap.
Are they?
So, yeah.
I think those are terrific.
To go check
Yeah,
it out.
I know Roger,
I'll have to go
you
check it
know,
out.
but no, maybe.
yeah, it's just
No.
a nice
Oh, it was you.
space
Okay.
with a chain
So
link
give me a
fence
cost
around
on
it.
those.
Oh,
Maybe that would be a good use for that $46,000
Yeah.
to put a couple of those in there.
Back when I put those in there, they were 5,000 a piece.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, fairly cheap for what they are.
Okay.
They don't come with the table, but it gets them
Shelter.
shelter. And you
And
just stick a
people really
table.
love those over at Ice Palace Park.
Yeah. They're nice looking.
Yeah, they are nice. looking. Okay, well, that's great. Remind me. Okay, thank you.
Put one at State Street while we're at it.
Well, if we're not gonna pave State Street,
Well,
if you
we
think it's a
need to
viable
decide,
park,
yeah.
then maybe we start maintaining it.
I would completely advocate for keeping it a park because there aren't any other parks near there.
You're
It's true.
right.
Well,
You're right.
We don't have enough parks.
Say,
Yeah. And
I wouldn't trade that park for parking, but I didn't get that.
I didn't have my heart set on parking. I just
No.
didn't think the park had much value, but I'm wrong. Good.
I would
keep an
def-
eye on it. Let's see
I would
what we
wanna
can
get
maybe do
some-
over the summer, just keeping it
Yeah,
picked up.
Well, then also, whoever we have doing parks maintenance,
Mhm.
you know,
Include that with their
Include it.
duties.
pick up the trash, mow it, once a month. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's
But I
sort of
like
in
to
that
mow my
zone
lawn
where
once a
it
year.
isn't taken care of, so people don't take care of it. 'cause-
Right.
so,
We haven't set the standard.
Yeah, but
We put a day's work in.
I
Yeah,
saw y'all out there.
yeah.
I
Yeah,
was thankful for
we were
that.
getting after it. I thought it made a big difference.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Okay, any other comments or thoughts on CTF funds? Okay, any final considerations on this budget the city council would like to bring to our attention? And anything that you want to discuss, Donna? It's kind of final thoughts.
Well, the only changes, I mean, I went through it with a fine tooth comb kind of, and I've just kind of readjusted some figures, nothing big, but I did want to go through and I added all of the grants that are gonna be coming in, so like well,
Page 2, 1, and 2.
page 2 for the revenue of the grants. So we've got like the, hopefully I put it in there, but we don't know yet, but the Tabor Opera House grant for that 600,000, we got the Open for Business grant for 250, we got the Visitor Center Parklet for 149,000 or well, 150,000. And then we've got some police department grants for more body cams and dash cams. So I kind of put all of that stuff in the budget. I also put in the extra revenue that we're going to be getting for the American Rescue Plan. So that we're not expending all of those out in 2020 without no revenue to offset it. So I thought it was kind of a good idea to get it in there. No other real big changes. I did add $3,600 on page 6. I added $3,600 for the employee assistance program that you guys approved last year. That was one thing that I had overlooked, and thanks to Jane, we had that extra revenue from the street department payments, so we had some extra revenue to cover that.
Let's talk about the 2A.
Oh, yes, the 2A. Okay. So on page 14. So I put this accommodations tax into a completely different fund as a recommendation by the mayor. But I put the revenue in as the city share of the housing director is going to be a transfer from general fund to this housing fund, because that's our contribution to that.
Under the housing IGA, yes.
Then we are in talks with Muni Revs to facilitate this for us, and it's a great program. And because we're already with them for the short-term rentals, the module to do this lodging revs is like, well, it's a $2,200 setup fee, but then it's $4,000 a year. I think we can't go wrong there. So I'm in talks with them now of finalizing that, but hopefully that works. So then down in the expenditures, we've got $70,000 of expenditures, which is going to be the 35,000 from us and the 35,000 from the taxes, and then the county share, because it's going to be a county employee, is they'll
They'll pay
They'll pay
their
their-
part of it.
Okay.
We'll contribute to them. That was part of the IGA that we worked on today that Chris blessed, because that was some of the changes that we'll make. We'll get to that. And everybody agreed. And so then the county this will be a county employee, they'll pay them, and then we will pay them out of this, the $70,000.
Okay.
So then Muni Revs with our merchant services that we use through them, because obviously they're not going to take cash from these people. So they got to pay with a credit card or a bank check. There is a fee there. And I'm going to try to work it out to where we can actually charge the customer. So basically, we almost like raise the fee a little bit when they use that card, so we can charge a certain part of it, so we can get some of that money back. That isn't defined yet, but hopefully that'll work out. It does. We do it with the short-term rentals. But it's not a 100% reimbursement, so,
Well, even if it's partial,
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
good thing.
I put it in there that we'd be paying 2,000 and maybe we get reimbursed for 1,500. It's a guesstimate. And then the expenditure to the tourism panel. And the other expenditure of going out there and seeing what we can do to put that money to good
With
use.
$89,000, see what we can do to help with low income and affordable housing. It's a start, but the biggest thing is the housing director. If we get the right person who can really guide this ship and make things happen like they did in Chaffey County, that's our hope.
Absolutely.
But we did want to go, that was, actually, this is about its third iteration. We were getting brain cramps trying to figure this thing out.
Yes,
Wow.
yes.
It looks simple now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
So obvious.
Like anything done masterfully.
Yes.
Seamless.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to thank you too. I know it took others as well, but it's a lot of work here, meeting with all the departments. Yeah, huge effort. Thank you.
I have to tell you, I love our budget process, and I can tell you I didn't love it before I was mayor. It was a train wreck, and this has been, especially with Donna, it's been a real joy to put these budgets together.
Kudos, Donna.
Thank you.
Because even when I started out, it was, I mean, and part of it, I'm sure, because it was my first budget cycle.
Mhm.
But you are so good about just parsing it out. And that is very helpful to really everyone, because then
Thank
it's transparent as it should be.
Yeah,
So thank you. Appreciate
you.
your time.
thank you.
Excuse me, I think Tracy has a comment.
Yes, Tracy, sorry.
What? No, I didn't have my hand raised. I was applauding.
Okay, thank you. Dana, any thoughts?
Yeah, I just have a question, Donna, just a point of clarification on the operating contingency.
Oh, yes.
Is where it says additional 38,000, is that what we're walking into for just kind of discretionary spending as it comes along?
Yes.
Okay.
And as you talk about that, are you done, Dana? I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm done. It was,
Okay. As a thought of that, we did stick $20,000 in there for Christmas decorations because a lot of our Christmas decorations had to be thrown out last year. So unfortunately, the city, I think,
We
is
were
gonna
looking at
be,
prices.
we were looking at
We're not
prices.
gonna pay that.
Yeah,
Some of them are, you just can't believe how ludicrous that industry is. We'll figure something out, but it'll have to be a little more creative than just going to a catalog.
yeah. But anyway, I thought that was a good start to start replenishing our Christmas decorations.
Thank you.
It's good to kind of keep your ears open, because a lot of people will be updating. in the
Well,
next
we
year or
got
two,
a
and-
bunch of the stuff we got from Montrose,
Yeah,
because they updated theirs and they said, if you would like this, come get
Come
it.
get
So
it.
we did.
get out.
We're not proud. I don't care.
No,
If people want to give you their hand-me-downs, I'm all in.
with you.
Okay, any other thoughts? This is the budget you'll be looking at on the 7th.
I have one more thing I
Oh,
forgot to
sorry.
mention.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, my brain's all over the place, so I'm sorry, but I also included the $20,000 to replace the server.
Oh, yes, that's right.
IT Dan says it needs to be replaced next year, but we had the money, so may as well get it done.
Okay.
I think that's it.
You'll have a chance for comments in just a minute, Steve. Okay, thank you all very much. The process has been good, and tonight was a little interesting, but that's okay. This Chinese curse has made you live in interesting times. Any other last thoughts from city council? Okay, at this time, we would entertain any public comments.
Well, I've been living in interesting times ever since city council decided to inflict some developers upon my neighborhood. I have 2 points here. At all prior work sessions, public comment is allowed during the meeting. At this meeting, I am barred from input and comment by Mayor Labbe, and no one on city council questions such action. My second point is, the need to gain full-time employment status for working class people is imperiously shrugged aside by this administration, by our city council members. Janitorial work as a city hall janitor provides, or that the animal shelter employees provide, is health abrasive work. Janitorial work is recognized as hazardous in part because of dust ingestion and breathing cleaning chemicals. Hence, these employees should be granted full-time status with health coverage benefits. At a prior budget meeting, Mayor Labbe articulated seeking to evade some state or federal mandates by not having 50+ full-time employees. So to evade such mandates, presumably to evade responsibility to labor, to save money, and to abrogate their duty to, as council members, so as to march favorably with a charismatic individual, Leadville City Council wrongfully, cruelly, and imperiously victimizes labor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Anybody on Zoom who would like to make any public comments? I see nobody raising their hand. Thank you very much. At this time, it is 7:57 and this city council work session is adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Mayor, could I ask a question about tomorrow?
Yeah, please.
What time will the city hall be open so we can be ready to roll at 8 o'clock?
Well, you're thinking about, I hope you're thinking about Thursday.
Oh, Thursday, yeah.
The hell out of me, Tracy.
Sorry.
I'll be here at 7:30.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for asking. That's a great question because Diane and I've been talking about how do we handle people coming in, and but so 7:30 is what I plan to be here.
Okay, I'll be here at 7:30.
In the meantime, Donna's going to get the packets ready for us. So